You ever come home after a year away thinking you'll see the old place breathe in those smells you grew up with, and instead you're greeted by $10 million worth of glass, steel, and smugness? That's what I walked into. Two mansions right where my grandfather's cows used to wander and my grandma's wildflowers bloomed. And get this, the woman in charge of the neighborhood, clipboard in one hand, my grandmother's wedding ring sparkling on the other, hit me with a restraining order for trespassing on my own land. Yeah, welcome home, right? She told me no. She bragged about the legal loophole that let them take everything while I was deployed overseas. Didn't even wait for my boots to hit American soil before bulldozing my grandparents' farmhouse. And the best part, 3 months later, I'm sipping coffee on her infinity deck watching the second mansion get prepped for auction while she's out of the picture for good. Let me back up a bit. My name's Marcus. I'm 37, third generation, raised on 40 acres of Texas hill country that for a long time felt as permanent as the sunrise. My grandparents bought this land in 47 with oil field money. Back then, 40 acres in a creek meant you didn't ask permission from anybody to live your life. My grandma, she'd plant wildflowers every spring up until her hands just couldn't anymore. Bluebonnets, paintbrush, black-eyed Susans. There were times it looked like God spilled his paint bucket right on our fields. You ever have a smell that just zaps you back? For me, it's that mix of blooming wildflowers and the lowing of cattle. That's home. I can still feel the rough bark of the old oak where I built my first treehouse. My parents, well, they didn't make it past a semi-wreck when I was 8. Grandma and Grandpa raised me in that creaky old house with its wraparound porch, the kind of place where the floors sang every time a storm rolled through. After they passed, everything came to me: the land, the house mineral rights, and a small cemetery where 4 generations of us lay under the oaks. Not a palace, but it was ours. And then life happened. Divorce, lawyers. You want to know how to bleed a man dry? Ask a divorce attorney. The Army offered me a deployment that would wipe my debts and set me up for civilian life. 1 year overseas training Afghan forces. I thought, hell, what could go wrong? Mrs. Arya, my grandma's best friend for 4 decades, lived next door. Sharp as a tack even at 80, though 5'0" soaking wet. She promised to keep an eye on things. I set up everything. Automated taxes, utilities, insurance, even lawn service. I left pages of instructions and numbers in case of emergency. That place wasn't abandoned, it was maintained. Big legal difference. I figured that would matter if it ever came to it. That's when Vivian Ashworth rolled in. If you imagine a shark who got a taste for Chanel and Mercedes, you're getting close. She and her husband had a system target families away on deployment. Old folks, anyone a little vulnerable. They'd file complaints, call the property abandoned, rush demolition claim, adverse possession. Folks come home to nothing. So while I was dodging mortars in Kandahar, Vivian was launching her own little war. Complaints about overgrown grass, accumulated male rodent risks. Never mind that Mrs. Arya picked up my mail every morning and the yard was trimmed twice a week. Mrs. Arya fought like hell for me. She marched into county meetings with her walker stacks of receipts, photos, you name it. But once Ashworth's lawyers threatened her with lawsuits for interference, she had to back down. Can't blame her. The county inspector. Let's just say his campaign got a generous little boost from Ashworth Holdings, the crew that bulldozed my home, Ashworth's guys. But the worst part, they didn't just steal the land, they erased my family, dumped every photo album, grandma's recipe box, my old rocking chair, trashed like it was nothing. The valuables, Vivian kept those. My grandmother's ring, a Depression-era band, outlasted 2 world wars, and now it was on her finger at country club luncheons, catching the light while she toasted her success. So when I finally got back, instead of wildflowers, I found marble under my boots. Chlorinated pool where the creek used to run. Some folks steal money. Vivian Ashworth, she stole legacies. But she missed something. Mineral rights. My family still owned everything underneath. And that would be her undoing. First morning back, a process server bangs on my motel door, shoving a 37-page restraining order in my face. Accusations, stalking, harassment. Somehow I managed all that while 6,000 miles away. The order banned me from my own land. $5,000 fines a day for every aesthetic violation my truck committed just by existing near her mansions. My granddad warned me paper beats bullets. Lawyers can take land faster than armies. He always said, your property rights live or die on documentation. If only I'd listened more closely. So I found myself in Bethany Rodriguez's law office staring at ceiling tiles while she explained how Ashworth Holdings was twisting laws meant to protect deployed soldiers into weapons for theft. The same legal shields that should have saved me, they'd used those as swords. I wasn't alone. Bethany tracked Vivian's trail, 8 families in 3 counties. Same playbook. Abandonment, demolition, adverse possession, all while the rightful owners were overseas. Mrs. Aria, God bless her, nearly broke my heart. She whispered over bitter coffee that she'd been offered $75,000 to lie, say I abandoned the place. When she refused, Vivian switched to threats court bankruptcy, even whispered about her immigration status. An 80-year-old who'd survived occupation wasn't about to break. But everyone has their limit. That night, Bethany laid out my grandfather's 1947 deed. The mineral rights clause clear as daylight. We didn't just buy surface. We kept oil, gas, water, gravel, anything the ground gave up. Turns out there was over $2 million in gas sitting under what used to be wildflowers. Vivian hadn't built those houses for looks, she wanted the gas money. The mansion's just window dressing for an energy partnership. But she screwed up. Mineral rights don't transfer unless you sell them in writing, notarized and witnessed. Bethany filed our countersuit, civil rights violations, fraud, mineral theft damages, $10 million on the table. Vivian. She went full theater, press conferences, crocodile tears, all on camera with my grandmother's ring flashing under the lights. The news ran with veteran threatens peaceful neighborhood while I sat in my truck, the only legal place I was allowed to be on my own land. But Bethany was grinning. She just handed us a gift, she told me. Vivian had publicly claimed ownership of stolen property on record and stolen jewelry, no less. 2 weeks after our lawsuit hit, the county health department visited my motel room, clipboard, fake concerned, and a psychiatrist who looked ready to retire. I was now unstable, a public safety risk, banned from the township during daylight. A legal vampire. Vivian had weaponized every department she could, turning my own hometown against me. Mrs. Aria called me to the Dairy Queen, our only safe spot. 3 men in suits had tried to bribe her $200,000 if she'd say I was violent. When she refused, they threatened to review her citizenship. Even though she'd been American since disco was cool, they were desperate. Bethany, meanwhile, found the nuke. Construction on those mansions started before the permits were even filed. Satellite images don't lie. And the creek, my grandfather's creek, was federally protected. They'd built too close, never filed environmental paperwork. The penalty, $4.5 million, and all permits invalidated. Both mansions were now technically illegal, ripe for demolition. The feds came in snapping photos, collecting water samples. Vivian freaked, called another press conference, but now the reporters wanted to know about fraud, construction dates, environmental crime. The bank, surprise, reevaluated my loans, $28,000 due in 30 days. Vandalism on my truck, anonymous complaints to my job, sugar in the gas tank. And then Mrs. Aria, fighting for me at 80 years old, collapsed in her tomato patch. Stress, the doctor said. I sat in that hospital hating myself for bringing this storm down on a woman who just wanted peace. But that's when Bethany called. She'd found it. My grandfather's 1947 railroad easement. He'd cut a deal, permanent road access for a spur line. And here's the kicker, a reversion clause. If the railroad ever left, the access returned to us. I remembered pulling up those rails as a kid, not knowing we were digging up a legal gold mine. Without that access, those mansions were landlocked. You can't sell houses people can't drive to. No access, no value. Buried in the old files, more good news. My grandfather's mineral rights agreement spelled out veto power for any development deeper than a flower bed. Vivian had sold energy contracts she didn't own. Her $30 million fraud was about to backfire hard. Bethany brought in those big guns. Veterans legal defense, the feds, even the FBI. The case ballooned: conspiracy, fraud, environmental crime. The best part. We had 8 other families ready to testify. Satellite maps, permit records, environmental reports, all lining up against Vivian. The gate I installed, steel posts, heavy lock, wasn't just keeping her out. It was psychological warfare. Vivian got desperate. Tried to burn down my trailer at 2 a.m, amateur job caught by VFW vets with night vision and quick hands. Gas station receipt, company card. She'd paid for arson with a corporate account. She sued me for $2 million, said I'd ruined her reputation. Meanwhile, her legal bills were paid by the same energy company, about to lose everything. Her last move. She hired a crisis PR firm, professional liars. They spun a story about an unstable veteran, paid actors to cry on the news, fake neighbors with fake stories. Then Mrs. Arya found the smoking gun, an internal email accidentally copied to me laying out the whole scam. Fake accounts, fake outrage, media manipulation. Vivian wasn't done. She tried to bribe me $4 million a house in Colorado and the promise of freedom if I'd just sign away my rights. I thought about my grandmother's ring, about Mrs. Arya in her hospital bed, about the family that built this land. Tell your client to spend that on a good lawyer, I said, because she's gonna need it. After I turned down the bribe, Vivian tried one last Hail Mary, leaked forged documents to the media, claimed I was under investigation for terrorism. Problem was, she delivered one in person on camera while wearing my grandmother's ring. The final showdown came on the courthouse steps. The news vans, the cameras, the whole town turned out. Mrs. Arya gave an interview, called Vivian out for the bribes, the threats, the ring. The crowd roared. The federal prosecutor took the mic, racketeering, fraud, environmental crime, all of it. Both mansions seized land, restored restitution for every family. When it was my turn, I just said, my grandmother's ring belongs to my family. My grandfather's land belongs to his descendants. And people who steal from military families while they're overseas defending this country belong in federal prison. The cheers nearly shook the courthouse. 6 months later, I'm on my new porch drinking coffee that tastes like victory, watching the sun rise over land that's truly ours again. The mansions got torn down. Federal marshals watched every swing of the wrecking ball. Mrs. Arya's back, living in the guest house, fussing over tomatoes and reminding me that family is what you make it. The money. Yeah, it's great. Enough to fund scholarships for military kids, restore creek habitats, buy back extra land. But the real victory, the wildflowers are blooming again. The creek runs cleaner than it has in decades. Every fall, the community throws a festival by the water, celebrating the land, the people who fought for it, and what comes from not backing down. Vivian's doing 15 years with restitution and community service waiting for her if she ever gets out. The ring's back where it belongs, safe for the next generation. You ever had someone try to steal what's rightfully yours just because they thought they could? Or have you seen an HOA go rogue? What did you do? Where's the line between fighting for your legacy and revenge? I want to hear your stories, especially if you or your family served. Sometimes your experience can help someone else stand their ground. So what would you have done?